For many people, speaking in front of an audience can be daunting. Picture this as an example. You've been asked to conduct a presentation in front of your board of directors. This could be the make or break in your career. You spend hours practicing and rehearsing your speech, but when you're about to deliver, everything that you have worked on was left at the door. Your heart rate starts to increase, you're breathing heavy, and you lose confidence once you're about to say. Don't feel bad or ashamed. This happens to the best of us, and I bet you that you don't know this. According to Glenn Croston, our fear of public speaking stems back to early humans and their fight for survival. When faced with standing up in the front of a group, we break into a sweat because we are afraid of rejection. At a primal level, the fear is so great because we are not merely afraid of being embarrassed or judged. We are afraid of being rejected from the social group, ostracized and left to defend ourselves all on our own. We fear ostracism still so much today, it seems. Fearing it, we fear it more than death. Because not so long ago, getting kicked out of the group probably really was a death sentence. As we stroll through the depths of history, there are thousands and thousands of powerful orators. But did you know some of the best in history had trouble with their speech? Winston Churchill is remembered for his wartime heroics, but Carmine Gallo brings the following story to life. While most people consider Churchill as one of the most gifted orators in history, Boris Johnson says that Churchill did not start out that way. We think of him as somehow supernaturally gifted, as if he had sprung from a union of Zeus and Polyphema, the very muse of rhetoric. I am afraid we are only partly right. According to Johnson, in fact, many years earlier, when Churchill was 29 years old, he stood up to give a speech in the House of Commons as a newly elected representative. And he literally froze. He froze for 3 whole minutes. He managed to say a few words, but returned to his seat in despair and covered his head with his hands. He vowed it would never happen again. Churchill spent years refining his speeches, practicing his delivery, and obsessing over every word choice, substituting longer words for shorter ones, more impactful ones. He gave hundreds of speeches. By the time he became Prime Minister at the age of 65, Churchill had become a masterful orator, one of the greatest speakers the world has ever known. The secret of Churchill's success of a speaker was immense preparation. He wasn't a natural, says Johnson. If that isn't proof for one of the best speakers, for one of the greatest speakers, how about Demosthenes? Bradley McCoy tells it best in his story. Demosthenes was perhaps the greatest of all Greek orators. He lived from 384 to 322 BC. He did not, during his early years, find it easy to speak in public, because he stuttered when he tried to speak, and stuttering was compounded by a shortness of breath that caused him to be able to speak only a few words at a time before having to deeply inhale. And the combination of frequent inhaling and stuttering through the few words that came out between his inhalations made him embarrassed to go out into public, fearful of the moment where he may have to speak. Then, after being laughed at by an audience he was forced to address, a man who had been in the audience followed him home and spent time coaching him on how to overcome his problem. First, Demosthenes practiced speaking in his private, underground study, with pebbles in his mouth. Second, he practiced reciting poetry while running uphill. He was diligent, he would not give up, and over time both the stuttering and the shortness of breath were overcome, and he emerged as one of the most brilliant orators in all of Greece. Could you imagine yourself running up a hill or having pebbles in your mouth when trying to speak? These are only 2 examples of how powerful orators overcome their problems with speech. Fear is going to be a part of speaking, but is how we handle these situations. And there are a few common threads that occur. Have a look at the following causes derived from Gary Gerard. 1. The speaker is self-conscious. Often you may hear someone mention they speak well in a small group, but when the size increases, they become anxious. 2. The speaker feels they are viewed as a nervous person. Well, they may perform well. Some mispronunciated words or slurred speech may distract from the message. 3. The speaker feels others are judging them. The worry and fear overrides their performance, and the speaker is conscious on what others will say. 4. The speaker has not prepared the speech. And 5. Poor breathing habits. After spending hours upon hours and hours and hours on the internet, searching for solutions to the perfect speech, you're most likely further away from the truth than you are when you started. For example, Public Speaking for Dummies lists the following when perfecting your speech. They mention this in their top 4. Number 1, avoid fidgeting with your hands, but at the same time use your hands to gesture instead of keeping them clasped in front of you. 2, look at the audience more than your notes. And if you don't feel comfortable looking at the audience, you need to practice your presentation a few more times until you do. 3, avoid showing your nervousness through tics such as pacing back and forth, or playing with your hair, or jingling change in your pocket. 4, stand behind a podium if it makes you feel more comfortable. If you are serious about public speaking, add these ingredients to your next speech. Research. Research your audience. Preparing to succeed in your speech starts with researching your audience. In the same fashion, an exceptional salesperson sells. They study their clientele. They construct a package that is attractive, and they deliver their top-class pitch. If the prospect isn't willing to buy, the seller gives them a reason why they need this. Tom Rickey states the following: prior to the meeting or event, speak to the organizer or sponsor of the meeting and acknowledge the audience has on the topic for discussion. Ask about the audience expectations as well as their demographic, age, background, and their gender. If you are presenting at an industry event, research the event website and familiarize yourself with the mission of the event and typical attendees. By taking the advice of research, you're one step closer to that memorable speech. You are first. You here are first. Put your audience first. First and foremost, the speech isn't about you. Carmine Gallo, put your audience first. Designer and Powered Presentation CEO Corey Jim said he is passionate about the topic because his father had passed away from lung cancer. He wanted to create a story using presentation slides that would change people's lives. The best presentations put the audience first. The fastest way to put your audience to sleep is to begin with an About Us slide and to spend the first 5 minutes talking about yourself, your company, or your product. Your audience members don't care about you, they care about themselves. You most importantly want to connect with your group. As we dive into this area, Simon Sinek has the following message regarding Dr. Martin Luther King. In the summer of 1963, 250,000 people showed up on the Mall of Washington, D.C. to hear Dr. King speak. They sent out no invitations, and there was no website to check the date. How do you do that? Well, Dr. King wasn't the only man in America who was a great orator. He wasn't the only man in America who suffered in pre-civil rights America. In fact, some of the ideas he had were bad, but he had a gift. He didn't go around telling people what needed to change in America. He went around and told people what he believed. I believe, he told people. And people who believed what he believed took his cause and made it their own, and they told people. And some of those people created structures to get the word out to even more people. And lo and behold, 250,000 people showed up on the right day, at the right time to hear him speak. How many of them showed up for him? 0. They showed up for themselves. It's what they believed about America that got them to travel in a bus for 8 hours to stand in the sun in Washington in the middle of August. Prepare, repeat. Prepare, repeat, and then repeat. Most people have heard of Apple Computers founder Steve Jobs, a man who single-handedly changed the way we use personal communication devices. He is remembered for his creations, but most importantly his powerful presentations. Carmine Gallo explains the Harvard quotation speech as the most quoted commencement speeches in modern history. Jobs wrote the speech himself and walked around the house for days reciting it over and over and over. On the morning of June 16, 2005, Steve Jobs woke up with butterflies in his stomach. I had almost never seen him more nervous, Jobs' wife Lorraine recalls. Jobs was nervous because the performance mattered to him and he wanted to get it right. Once they arrived at a venue, the guard at the venue didn't quite believe that the man riding shotgun, wearing tattered jeans, Birkenstocks and an old black t-shirt, was the commencement speaker. Steve Jobs wasn't a natural speaker. He worked at it really, really hard. Although he had an early flair for the dramatic, there's no question his comfort level on stage improved over time. It improved because he cared intensely about the message, the aesthetic and the look of his brand. Use your body language to control the speech. To add dynamic to the speech, move your body and control your hand gestures. The Observer staff, there's an extract of comments of Barack Obama. He's mastered a certain cadence that's very effective, said Nuremberg. He turns to the right to make his first point with a rise. Then he turns to the left with full to the close. The movement helps hold the audience's attention. Too much movement, Nuremberg said, can convey a lack of control. Obama, he said, has been able to balance the extremes like Kennedy. But there is a lot that you can take from Obama. And for example, point at the sky for power. Use a fist pump to challenge change. And how big? How big? Use your hands to express. Don't restrict your speech to the spoken word and maximize the effect. I'm going to get you pumped. I'm going to get you pumped. Motivate the audience. We're going to win. There was a growing number of motivational speakers who are changing the development of public speaking. Take tips from Tony Robbins, Eric Thomas or Simon Sinek. The famous Les Brown brings the message home when he mentions the graveyard is the richest place on earth because it is here that we find all hopes and dreams that were never fulfilled. The books that were never written. The songs that were never sung. The inventions that were never shared. The cures that were never discovered. All because someone was too afraid to take that first step, keep with the problem, or determined to carry out their dream. Lift the mood of your audience and give them a message to take home. Look, Oprah Winfrey, the media queen, is an inspiration to so many, and we can learn so much from Oprah. She has lived a life that started in rags and has risen to the most powerful woman in the world. In her speech to the Harvard graduates, she creates a masterclass presentation, and Matthew Clarinda mentions the following. She motivates the audience through a cluster of comments. At some point, you are bound to stumble, she told the crowd of thousands of graduating students and their friends and families. You will at some point fall, and when you do, I want you to remember this. There is no such thing as failure. Failure is just life trying to move us in another direction. Now, going back to the title of this topic, in part, Smoke and Mirrors. Smoke and Mirrors, the Donald Trump story. No one has played this card better than President Donald Trump. And David Graham continues with the following. The president offered a set of promises for his first 100 days, and though he tried to downplay it recently, somebody put out the concept of a 100-day plan. He told the Associated Press in mid-April. He has completed a few of the items on that list, but what about a broader look at the major promises of the 2016 campaign? But Trump is one but many that use a big story to draw in the audience. You can look at the current political campaigns of National and Labour. Out of all their promises, what really is going to come to fruition? Advertising is no different and is leading the public. It leads the public to view something is going to happen when all along the speaker knows that will never change. As I draw to a close in this speech, speaking in front of an audience will cause fear. But it is how you deal with this. If you need help, ask. And someone to listen to you speak. Rehearse in front of a mirror. Remember the story of Demosthenes and start running up a hill while trying to speak. Whatever you're doing, keep working on this. Research the best orators and see what they are doing. Google is the best encyclopedia in the world. It is at your fingertips. Speech is a gift to all humans. Some people can't speak and some who can are too scared to. What you could say could inspire someone. What you could say could inspire change. And what you could say could inspire a movement.